That's the conversation we're having this morning with my amazing, beautiful ladies with me in studio. I do not want, leo nimesema si jinx kitu yote, I am not that one. Karibuni.
Thank you so much.
I can talk. Where I can talk. Hey, I'm sorry. So today I decided I'm not saying names for my guests. Wajiseme ndio wajipea hiyo identity.
Okay.
Karibuni.
Thank you so much.
So where do we want to start?
I can start.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my name is Marion Guy. I am the programs manager of a youth-led organization. It's called Power 254. What a coincidence. Y254 Power 254. Yes, so we are a youth-led organization that works with young people across Kenya. And our mandate is to empower young people through civic education and just empowering them to be able to participate in matters governance, public participation, influence policies. And how we do our work is that we use art. So I was very impressed when the previous guest, just did a poem because we use a lot of storytelling, we use a lot of artistic expression to just be able to have conversations and dialogues with young people, with citizens across the country. And the end goal of this, of course, is to push for influence social change, good governance, speak about human rights violation and the upholding of human rights and the Constitution as well. So in a nutshell, that was what we do at Power 254. And we are really grateful to be part of this show this morning. Asante.
Yeah.
Over to you, Flizzy.
I don't know why you looked like saying something like that.
Okay. My name is Flores Munyiri. I am a radio producer, radio presenter, and also a DJ at Power 254. So pretty much what she said about Power 254, siwezi ongeza anything. That's pretty much all. Yeah.
What does safe space mean for you?
For me, I think generally, safe space means a place or a space where I can exist without fearing, without having to look left and right. Just have a safe space where I can coexist with anyone without being worried. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say pretty much the same. Just being in a place where I feel protected, a place where I feel that in case there's anything, then the law is protecting me, someone is watching over me. But I want to say that beyond just safety and where I am, I think safe space for me means the even understanding on how to create the safe space itself. Because if we don't have an understanding on how to create safe spaces, then how are we going to create them? And when we talk about safe spaces from the context of GBV, we are often, our mind is often stuck on, therapy, psychosocial support. But we're not talking about creating awareness on issues that lead us to us needing to create the safe spaces. For example, if young men and boys are not taught the importance of respecting women, if we are not taught the importance of changing behavior, culture, attitudes towards women, then how are we going to create safe spaces for women even in the society? So for me, it's just the understanding on even what is gender-based violence. Let's begin from there, because even there are people who don't know what GBV is. Therefore, even while in their mind they might think they are a safe space, but they are actually abusing a young girl, a woman. So it's important for us to understand what is GBV, different forms of GBV, and the impact of it, so that we are able to create that safe space for this for young girls and women and even boys, and children. Yes.
So what truly, I appreciate the sentiments you've given. How do we tell what a true safe space? Because mimi naweza kuwa nafikiria hii ni safe space, or mimi naweza kuwa nafikiria the house I am living in is safe, but the people I am living with are not safe.
Yeah.
Because where does GBV come from? Where does violence, what do I call it? This word is escaping my mind. But sometimes we understand that these atrocities are done to us by people that are closest to us.
Yeah.
So how do we distinguish what is truly safe? Because we realize that even our homes might not even be their safe space.
That's true. Yeah, I think for me, how to identify that, like I just mentioned earlier, we have to create awareness, because not just for boys, also for girls. Because what you're trying to say is that as a woman, for example, if you are living with your cousins, how then do you tell when your cousin is abusing you or not? So for me, it's the understanding of what causes GBV, what is GBV. So GBV, of course, is any form of infringement of your right, that is gender from an approach of gender, yeah, perspective, either gender discrimination or whatnot, and or even intersectionalities, depending on how you identify. But then what causes GBV mostly, particularly for women, I'd say there are issues like inequalities existing between men and women. We all know, even in terms of economic empowerment, men and women are not empowered the same. We have the issues of culture, behavior. We mostly live in a patriarchal society. So even naturally, when you grow up in your family, there are things your brother will do that you are not allowed to do. And those attitudes are what eventually come up and become abuses to women. There are issues of poverty, for example. You could be living with a man, because we had an event last week, because we are also rolling out a campaign. We just rolled out a campaign on GBV, and we had storytellers, and one of the stories they were sharing was that most of them have been in abuse because of poverty, economic empowerment issues. They're living with a man. Just because the man is paying rent, they think they have an authority to beat you. They think they have an authority to abuse you emotionally, financially, psychosocially, yeah? And so, for me, the most important thing is for us to understand what are the causes of GBV, what are the characteristics of GBV, and maybe just to mention a few forms of GBV. There's physical violence and abuse. There's emotional abuse. There's financial abuse. There are cultural abuses like what is it called, FGM? Yeah, like FGM, for example. So when we understand what these are, then even as a woman, as a young boy, as a man, you are able to understand what GBV is. You're able to identify when you are being abused. Even for men, there are men who have been abused and young boys who have been abused by fellow men or even women. So if they are able to be taught what this looks like, then they can be able to identify what is a safe space for them and what is not. But let me also welcome Flozy to just say a bit on that as well. Yeah.
Yes, but I also think as for media, since I'm in that space, I think we have been slacking in terms of creating awareness when it comes to GBV, yeah? And considering the fact that we are leaving a boy child behind. Now that we have been talking about GBV for women mostly, we have been leaving the main problem behind, who is a man.
Tunaaddress tunaacha issue
tunaacha issue huko nyuma, address the problem, but the problem is back there. So I think it's about time we have a conversation with men too, because they're the bigger part of the problem, yeah? As much as they're being abused, I think they're the bigger part of the problem, yeah? So having that conversation with men, that would actually mean having to solve this in whole, yeah. But also I think culturally, we have a problem especially when our mothers are telling us, ukichapa, tulia tu. That is how marriage works, yeah? Imagine, vumilia tu. And I think that is why we have been having a lot of deaths, because tumekuwa tu penye unakimbilia ni kwa wazazi. Alafu anakuambia wewe vumilia, rudi tu, kuna watoto. I think that is an issue we should also start talking about. Yeah.
How important is it to create safe spaces?
It's very important, because if we don't, women are dying, children are dying, young boys are being abused. So, like I said earlier, it's very, very important to be able to know that if we are not able to talk about these issues, if we don't create the safe spaces, we are going to lose lives. People are living in trauma. It's going to be a ripple effect, even in the society. We are transferring pain to different generations. So that's why I say it's very important to create safe spaces. And by this, it even means, even at the legal level, so at existing policies, if we don't have policies that are protecting these young men, these young women, then it becomes a challenge. So it is very, very important to protect, to have safe spaces. Otherwise, then people are going to die. Like we're having rising cases of femicide. 97 women dying in a span of 3 months is not something very interesting. You not being able to go for your walk anymore because you don't know, you might end up in a banana plantation. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm laughing. It's just the way it has come out.
Yeah, it's not a very interesting thing. So yeah, it's very, very important for us to create those safe spaces. And also, when you talk about creating the safe spaces, it's beyond just prevention. How do we intervene for people who are victims, for example? If somebody has been raped, if somebody has been sexually abused, if somebody has been emotionally abused, then how are we able to help them go past that? Are we creating spaces where they're able to speak about the issues? Are we having gender responsive desks, for example, at health facilities? Are we having gender sensitive officers at police stations, so that when you go there, mtu akuulizi, ebu na ulirepiwa ukifanya nini? I mean, that's so insensitive. Are we having training officers so they're not able to create more stigma to victims? So it's very, very important to create safe spaces, and it's beyond the victims, it's also the people who handle the victims as well.
So safe spaces, to just get what you're saying clearly, safe spaces, creating safe spaces goes beyond the victim creating a space for themselves, but also the person handling the victim to help them create that safe space.
Exactly.
Well, in your opinion, let me bring DJ Flows. In your opinion, why do you think people struggle with creating safe spaces?
I think the system.
I like the way she's smiling.
I think the systems, man. I think the systems. Like now, think of it. Do we even have a toll number for you if you're abused? Do we even have someone to call? First of all, 999, 911, the Kenyan one, doesn't work. So do we have, even if I'm abused or if I'm having a domestic violence in my home, who am I supposed to call? If I call the police, then again, the same question. Ulichapa ukifanya nini? What were you doing? What were you wearing? I know, yes.
That question, what were you wearing?
And what did you do?
What did you do first?
Do I have to do something?
Why were you walking alone? Why were you going that side? The question is why. That's the questions they're asking us. They're not giving us solutions. Because when can you listen, what was I wearing and I have been abused? Now, where am I coming from? I think the systems are not really working for us.
Also, why is it selective for women? Why don't we ask a man, why were you wearing a tight shirt? Why is it just about women? So it also goes back to perception. But also, just to add on to that, stigma. Stigma, it is very difficult. Imagine bringing a sex worker on live TV to tell their story of how they have been abused. In this generation, the internet generation, when you go to the comments, you will see people trolling her. Unezaje kwa malaya kwa hii generation. But you see, we must respect people's choices as well. A woman, even the woman who was the recent GBV case for Nakuru, if you look at the comments on social media, they are so nasty. Men are like, she deserved it, she's the one, all those kind of stories. But must someone die for us to prove a point? I feel like there's so much stigma around GBV. There's so much fear, even for women. Even in terms of reporting, forget about the city. Let's talk about the village. How many women in the village would go and report, for example, their uncle has sexually abused them? It's close to impossible because culturally they'll say, utaharibia familia jina. So there's so many issues around GBV that causes stigma. I mean, some of them of mostly culture, you know, the patriarchy that comes with it, the shame that comes with it. Even for men, for example, I hate to bring up this. You remember the blogger who was abused sexually in Mombasa? How many people would empathize with that man? Even some people on social media will go ahead and empathize, but some will go ahead and troll him. So there's so much shame and stigma around GBV that hinders the creation of safe spaces.
What are some of the key elements or practices, rather, we can use in creating safe spaces, be it in the office, be it in schools? Of course, I know in the offices nowadays, like the other day, particularly here, they created sexual harassment something
Policy.
policy. Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
So how do we? What are some of the key elements or practices we can use in creating safe spaces?
Of course, I think for me, I'd say in places of work, we already have the Employment Act, for example. That requires that at least people are protected from abuse and all those things. But even in our communities, awareness, because without awareness, there is no safety. You are only safe because I acknowledge and understand that I must create a safe space for you. Number one. Number two, safe houses. Particularly for people who are living in environments where hawana choice. Aki hana pesa, like we hear women, hana pesa, kuna watoto watatu. The only way she can survive is by living with that man who's battering her. So how do we help such people? Even if it's a man as well and a young boy. So we create safe spaces for them through providing things like safe houses so that they are able to be protected. But also remember, safe houses are costly. So that means we also have to push for funding, enough funding for, to address GBV issues. We have organizations that work with women rights organizations, for example, like, I don't know if you know Usikime. Usikime does amazing work in protecting women. And therefore, people like those need to be funded well so that they can continue with the good work that they are doing. But also we must address the emerging trends in GBV, which in this case is it called online abuse? The online abuse, whereby we're having cyberbullying
And trolling.
And you hear even some of the influencers say, oh, I'm taking a break from social media. It has been too much. I've been abused because of my body, because of my what? Because of an issue I experienced, So even how also do we deal with these emerging forms of GBV as well? That would be my sentiment.
I also think media plays a bigger part of this because we are everywhere, especially the mainstream media, but also the online medias there. Because now a lot of young people are in the online spaces, but when it comes to mainstream media, itafikia hadi watu wa ushago, So that means when we sensitize or we talk about it in the media stations, that means inafikia watu wengi. So I think for media, we play a bigger role in putting these words out here.
And changing narratives as well. For example, even the most recent case of the Nakuru guy, what is media reporting?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes media is very interesting.
I think the problem now is kila mtu amekuwa media kivyake.
I know.
Nowadays
you have journalists out there.
Alafu kidogo hata kabla uione kwa TV, mtu ashatoa kwa TikTok yake.
Analyzing.
Uko like, hiki kimefanyika saa ngapi?
So media plays a key role in shaping narratives, and in as much as we have the new media that people are using, what role does Y254 play, for example, in changing even those narratives? Because there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation on social media. So how does mainstream media then change these narratives so that we are also not pushing harmful narratives that are advocating for the, encouraging this kind of behaviors? But I also wanted to say, psychosocial support is very important. Even in our hospitals, the government is supposed to have those areas, the GBV areas where they're supposed to support victims. So are they funded well? Do they have the right people? Are they getting the right help? Are the nurses or people there or psychotherapists there understanding how they need to handle victims? Are they, for example, some victims want their issues to be very confidential. Is that respected? So even just psychosocial support is very, very important. But even by extension, family members, if your family member has gone through that, then how do you support them? If they don't have money to go for therapy, pay for therapy. If not, then don't be part of the people who continue to inflict pain through having negative narratives around such issues. But most importantly, we cannot ignore the place of the law in this matter, because above all, we have policies and legal frameworks that need to protect citizens against this issue, to protect young men and women. So where are we in terms of implementation? What is the role of the ODPP, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution in ensuring that these perpetrators are actually prosecuted, charged, and put to jail, for example. What is the role of police? There are a lot of systemic issue, corruption. Sometimes unapata mtu anakuwa abused when they go to the police. Even the current case. What was the man saying? That there's nothing he'll be done for example. So the religion is also another. So there's so many systemic issues that we need to deal with, so that we're also able to assist the victims to be able to get justice.
There are some more organizations like Power 254. We have we are planning to have a session of where we have therapists to come and talk to the people, the victims. So we handle maybe the payments of the therapists, then they just come and have that session. So more organizations can just come in with such kind of, and so we have a lot of help for these victims.
And maybe just to add to that, is that there are other forms of GBV that we don't talk about, and this is like the people we work with, they're called human rights defenders. Human rights defenders are people who advocate for rights of citizens. And there are also women rights defenders who just are human rights defenders, but they're female. And you realize that also human rights defenders face a lot of challenges, abuse. When you go for protests, wanashikwa. Women in the society, some of them are attacked, they're not safe, So even for us at Power 254, as Flozi mentioned, we just launched a 3-month campaign. It's called Scars Behind the Mask, because Scars Behind the Mask is a campaign that seeks to advocate for respect of human rights, of course in reflection of the previous Maandamano and just human rights violations, death and whatnot of young people, but also protection of women's rights, especially during at this time where we have a rise in cases of femicide. So we have a couple of activities whereby last week we just launched the campaign. We are having psychosocial support for these victims, for human rights defenders as well, and we just seek to support them, and also most importantly strengthen support systems for both GBV survivors, people who work with GBV survivors or who help address those issues, and human rights defenders as well.
So I know, of course, we can't alienate, or rather, we can't remove empathy, listening, being there, what both of you have just mentioned, as one of the ways we can be there for people. But what roles do these activities do in ensuring that we create safe spaces? How does active listening contribute to creating safe spaces? How does me being empathetic with your situation contribute to creating safe spaces?
I would say, let's just start with the most simple word. It facilitates the process of healing. Because if you talk, if you are heard, then it affirms you that people care. It affirms you that you can be protected. It affirms you that you can get justice. If we provide psychosocial support for you, it affirms you, but beyond the abuse. You might not completely forget, but you might cope. You might be able to find a way to cope and survive. If we, like I said, part of the safe spaces is ensuring that we also have the right resources to support the victims. If we have the right resources in hospitals, in police stations, we have safe desks for these victims. It affirms you that there is help, you can get justice. The law is there for you, I think that's what I'd just say in a nutshell, and allow Flozi maybe to just throw in her thoughts around that as well.
I think just having someone to talk to gives you like a leeway to actually, like she said, healing, You're not completely forgetting about the situation you were at, but at least it gives you some kind of morale to continue living, because at some point these GBV survivors, sometimes you feel like the life is ending. So having someone to actually listen to you, using empathy and using these therapies, then you're able to cope and to continue with life, and also to help advocate and talk about GBV.
We appreciate the fact that we are trying to create safe spaces, but of course in the in the trying to create safe spaces, challenges arise. What are some of these challenges that people face when they're trying to create these spaces?
I think the legal is
System,
a challenge.
yeah.
The legal system is a challenge, because when you report, what happens then?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that is one of the biggest challenges we have. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just like to emphasize what she said. The criminal injustice system in Kenya is quite a long process. So what happens is that you'll find, even if you report your case, which most people have, it really takes a long time to be able to address the case. So utapata, the case is dragging. The forms, the number of times you have to go to court, the number of times you have to keep telling that ill story to the public, to the, you know, to the court for you to get justice is very demoralizing, and sometimes makes victims actually just give up, because remember, you are also continuously creating harm for them. So you're trying to heal, but you keep on telling the story. So it's very painful, number one. Number two, there's the issue of corruption that I talked about. There's some people in this country who feel like they're untouchable. So you'll find that they will create harm, they will abuse, and at the end of the day go bribe the justice system, and therefore the victims will never get justice. Number three, there's just a bad culture around some of these issues. For example, if you go to the marginalized community, let me talk about, say, the Maasai, or even into kind of communities where FGM is practiced, you'll be told that's part of the culture. You're now being a grown woman. If it's your uncle who's abused you, you'll be told you cannot speak this against your uncle. You've seen so many people come out and say, I was abused by my uncle, but my mom said I cannot talk about it, and whatnot. Yeah. So for me, I'd say there's just poor or lack of a better responsive way of handling GBV cases, so that we're able to get justice. But I also want to acknowledge that the country, in Kenya, we've been trying to really push for these issues, so that we're able to get justice for victims and have perpetrators charged. And I know even at the office of the ODPP, they have, I think, a framework that was launched 2 years ago that is supposed to help them respond to these issues very fast, that they are able to get justice for the victims. Yeah, but I also say there's a lot of ignorance, because even when we were having our meeting last week, our event, one of the things someone from the ODPP mentioned was that there are so many young people in custody, and it's because they do not know it is against the law to have sexual relations with a minor. So you are 21, your girlfriend is 16 years old. Yeah, you don't know it's a criminal offense. So you end up being in jail as a young person. So I think some of the challenges also is just like young men and women are not educated enough. As a young girl, you don't know you're a child, obviously. As a young man, you don't understand.
High school.
Exactly. Yeah, you'll get yourself in hot soup. So I think for me, those are some of the challenges that we have in the system.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we bring this conversation to a close, and I didn't even believe time has passed that.
Yeah.
Done that fast. But as we bring this conversation to a close, how do we ensure that we maintain the safe spaces we create?
I think we continue with the advocacy. We continue talking about the issue. The more we talk about it, the more we create more safe spaces, and organizations like Power 254 having this kind of sessions, then we continue having such kind of,
Yeah, we also change narratives. We change societal narratives. We change culture as well. Because we have to change the negative cultures that bring harm or lead to abuse, so that we are able to have safe spaces. Yeah. The truth is also we have to invest in this space. It is very expensive. Therapy is expensive. Creating safe houses is expensive. Creating awareness is expensive. So even women rights organizations, youth-led organizations like Power 254, as we are doing this work, we must invest resources, financial resources, and knowledge, research. We must be able to invest enough resources for us to be able to tackle this issue exhaustively. We must understand that it's not just a female or a male issue. It is a societal issue. And therefore, we must be able to change narratives, change behaviors, by creating awareness for us to be able to reduce the rising cases of femicide. We must be able to invest in our young women, because one of the root causes of this is also lack of economic empowerment, and poverty that forces young girls and women to find themselves in these situations. So how are we investing in young women? For example, we are seeing like the creative industry, which is also prone to GBV because of how it is because of its existence. People are now investing, are providing financial access to female enterprises in the creative industry. So also, how do we have incentives, even for example, that are able to help women participate in businesses for us to have, to empower them economically, so they're able not to find themselves in situations because of maybe poverty, or they don't have rent. But most importantly, no one deserves to live in fear. No one deserves to feel like I am being abused because I don't pay rent. The abuser must also know that women's rights are human rights, and a human right is a human right, irrespective of whether I have money or not. You should respect my right, and protect us as
Finally,
well.
as a parting shot, what message would you give to someone who wants to create a safe space for themselves? So I'd say you give us one, she gives us one.
I think for me, the knowledge is power. The most important thing is for them to have knowledge of, first of all, what is a safe space.
Use this camera.
Okay. First of all, what is a safe space? Yeah. As I said, knowledge is power. What is safe space for you? Whether you're a victim, whether you want to prevent or support victims, or even just have preventive measures, so that people are not going through the same cycle of abuse. So have knowledge of what GBV is. Where you can get help. There are very many organizations that are providing platforms for help. We have FIDA, who even give legal aid for free. We have IPOA, who have a toll number. We have the Office of the ODPP, who also have protective measures to just help victims speak out and get justice. So empower yourself so that you are able to assist victims and also actively contribute in prevention measures of gender-based violence. Thank you.
Flos, give us your final thoughts.
My final thoughts. First of all, we'll be having an event on Friday. There is a reggae event that we'll be having a panel to discuss about GBV in the creative industry. So the whole idea of having producers and artists and come together and talk about GBV and how to create safe spaces for people in the creative industry. That's the conversation we're going to be having. Also, this is a call out to the media to just talk about it, sensitize people, and also for events planners. Let's have policies in all the spaces.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for talking to us about this thing.
Thank
you for having us.
Karibuni. That is it. That was it. That was all we had for you today. Please keep yourself safe. Keep your family safe. Ensure that you create a safe space, not just for you, but for everyone around you. That's all we had for you from us today. Do have a lovely day. My name is Grace Maingi. God bless you.